about a very interesting experience that has been in my life since 1988. And I would like to share my experiences with you because I had a total communist house guest with me for 1 week. This particular experience started in the summer of 1988. I worked for the city of Madison, Wisconsin. How many of you have ever been there? You know how beautiful it is, and the Capitol dominates the downtown, and the university is 8 blocks away, and it's as big as Penn State, if not bigger. And the problem is that it's on a lake, a 20-mile-round lake, and that's the university. So I was the program coordinator for the city of Madison for 20 years. And we had different activities that I was part of. And the mayor called a meeting in the summer of 1988 and announced that we had a new sister city. We already had Freiburg, Germany, and we really, really welcomed them. They were wonderful people. But we now were told in the conference room of the mayor's office that we were going to be sister city to Vilnius, Lithuania, country behind the Iron Curtain, and it was part of the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic. Now people ask me, how did he do that? Because it was still communist all over Russia and all of their holdings. And I said, I have no idea, but I wouldn't put anything past our mayor. We had this meeting. It was in August. He said, we are a capital city, and so is Vilnius. We are a university town, and so is Vilnius. And they have a huge agricultural rural area, and that is what we have. Dairy farmers all around Madison. So he called this a goodwill visit, and I thought this will be really fun. That August meeting told us that they were all English speaking and that they would arrive in October, and each one of us, if we could, we would have them as a house guest. And I would be having a woman that came, her name would be Helena Kovitskayeta. And when you look at it on the paper I turned out, it's right at the heading in the center. It took me a long time to be able to pronounce it. She was exactly 50 years old, and I was about 50 also. We were to provide housing, and we were to take them wherever they wanted to go. We would provide meals, transportation, and visit places of interest in Madison. And we would also tour the Capitol, which looks like a Capitol in Washington. We did lots of movies, because you can't do a movie in Washington, it's too many permits. So Madison looks like Washington, so we used to have movies there. So they will tour that beautiful Capitol. They will go to hospitals to see our hospitals. And they will look at our government offices and city offices in particular. And we are to welcome them and provide opportunities. Sunday afternoon in October, 10 people arrived from Vilnius, Lithuania. 7 men and 3 women. I was assigned to Helena immediately. She's the lady with the glasses on the paper. She's a 50-year-old professor in a gymnasium. A gymnasium is the name for high school. She had one small suitcase and a great big purse, and her hair was very short, sort of gray, but mostly purple. She seemed very tired and very happy to be here. She's a little shorter than me. And the mayor announced that we will all meet at the city county building tomorrow morning, Monday morning. I put Helena and her small suitcase in my car, and we drive to my house. My house is a 1927 frame home built by Norwegians. I'm in the Norwegian neighborhood in Madison, which was very, very prominent because it was so old-fashioned and people liked living there. The Norwegians built the neighborhood. They had a church down the road that had originally spoken all Norwegian. And there were carpenters, electricians from all the trades, all Norwegian, that came to Madison in the 1900s. My house was 1927 and it had 2 fireplaces, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. It was so ordinary except for those 2 things. I had 2 bedrooms upstairs and a little sitting room in the back. Nothing special. We drive to my house. Upon entering, Helena, who was very, very confident, said, "How many people live here?" And I said, "I do. My youngest daughter's in college, and she's not here right now." I said that it was hard to live all by myself because I was used to having 4 children around me all the time. She said, without smiling, "In my country, 3 families would live in a house like this." I smiled and said, "Well, I'm glad to have you here. You're helping fill up the house." I took her upstairs and showed her around and helped her unpack. I gave her towels, a closet, hangers, bath soap, and when she came downstairs, I said, "What would you like to see?" I had tea in the dining room and we were sitting at the dining room and just being girls. She said she wanted to see a high school class. She wanted to see the university. She wanted to see a hospital. She wanted to see government housing. She also said she'd like to see what kind of transportation we had, and she'd like to know more about the Kareems. And that's what I did. I sat there just like you. "Oh, what are the Kareems?" I said. And she said, "Well, it's too hard to explain, but I'm a Kareem, and if I could talk to some professor, I'd like to find out about the Kareems in America." I said, "Fine." Day 2, she slept like a log. It was wonderful. I had to say, "Helena, come on, we've got to get to the mayor's office. We're all meeting." 11 a.m., we go to the mayor's office. All of them are there. By the way, I told you that there were 7 men. And yes, they were farmers. They went to stay on farms. They did not have any city jobs. They were farmers. Yet, the women were all city employed in Vilnius. So they stayed with us, but the men were off to farms. So they came in a little late. And while we were at that meeting, I asked if anyone knew a special professor in the perhaps Soviet information or Slavic speaking that knew Kareems. And they all looked at me. I said to Helena, I would like to find the Slavic language professor, so everybody's looking for him, including the mayor's office. I drive her through campus. We sat out at the student union. It was October, the lake is gorgeous and the trees had turned, and that's Lake Mendota. We went for a tour of the Capitol building, which is, as I said, a replica of the Capitol in Washington, only it's on a smaller scale, but it's still Vermont white marble. I took her back home after that. That's a long trip around to take her in those places. And we're sitting and having a little bite to eat, and she said, "Can I call my cousin in Chicago?" And I said, "Of course, I didn't know you had a cousin in Chicago." And she said, "Yes, I have a cousin in Chicago and I want to see her." I said, "That's fine." And that was kind of the end of our day. We were just relaxing. On the third day, I took her to East High School where my kids went. It's a big public school on the east side of Madison, which is mostly where Madison was, at least at one time, highly populated, because it's old neighborhoods. I took her to a history class. I made arrangements with the principal because I knew who he was because of my kids going there so many years. And he took me upstairs to the history class with Helena. The teacher introduced her, sort of stumbled over her name, and pulled down a map like this, the way they do in high school. And he said to the kids, "Can you find Lithuania?" No kid could find Lithuania. The kids were giggling and laughing, and their hair is still purple. They were very rude. And they treated her with indifference. She was nobody special, and we sat at the very back of the class. After that, on the way to the hospital, because we have to go to the hospital too to see how it is and what it's like, she said, "Very bad children." And then she said, "That professor's weak." We ate at the hospital cafeterias day 3, and I showed her around and took the elevator. And I also explained that we have shuttles. People shuttle back and forth to hospitals. We have a VA hospital that's for veterans. She just looked at me like I was crazy. And I explained that the bus transportation goes all over the city, and it's very convenient for students, and it's very convenient because we don't have a lot of parking ramps or parking spots because of the lakes. We have a lake here, and my land is here. And so we're on an isthmus. I took her back home and I put food in a crock pot, so we sat and talked. And her cousin, she wanted to talk to her cousin. She called her cousin and asked if her cousin could visit on a Friday afternoon. And I said, sure, she can visit any time she wants. We had a wonderful talk about Lithuania for an hour, that she talked in Lithuanian to her cousin, and with no English, I didn't know, but she seemed happy for the first time that she'd been in my house for 3 days. In the meantime, day 4, the mayor's office had made a actual, appointment for me with a professor from the Slavic languages, and with me, they told me to come in and get the map because they know I get lost. So I went in there and got the map for that, and that was the next day. It was amazing. We got a telephone call beforehand, and I had asked that the professor call me. And the phone call was in my kitchen. He called up and I said, I'm calling because I have a house guest. The house guest is our sister city house guest, and she's from Lithuania, and she's very interested in finding out more about the Karems. There's dead silence. I said, she is a Kareem, and she'd like to talk to you about it, and I think you'd find her quite interesting. And he was very nice. He said to me, the Kareems were in the Crusades. In the 1500s, they were Jewish, and they lived in Turkey for the most part, and that they changed to Christianity so that they could be interpreters for the Crusaders who are going from European countries to Jerusalem. They were the Kareems. He said, what does she want to know about them? And I said, I have no idea, but she is one. It was very interesting to tell her that I'd found a professor and that we were going to drive over there and see what he had to do. and help her. I had the directions, so she was very happy, and so was I. I dropped her off at the university, and I knew she could find her way up the stairs and things. She was a very smart woman. So off she went. She came back very relaxed, very happy. She talked to him. And she was different a little bit. She started talking to me about her daughter, Catherine, and her husband, and that they lived in a big apartment building. Look at those apartment buildings. One of many, and they were very, very noisy. Also, they had a bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen, and a small room which would have been like for her daughter, Catherine. They had no private bathroom. The bathroom was a collective bathroom for the people that were around them. It was for the families to brush their teeth, go to the bathroom, take showers. It was there on the floor to give them the opportunity to do that at their will, but it was not private. It was always open to the other people on that floor in that apartment building. Now look at that apartment again, because that's how they lived. I said to her, well, who has houses? Because I was thinking, this is odd. She's a professor, she's intelligent, she speaks 3 languages, and she doesn't have a bathroom? She said, only the people in the party get houses, and they're usually shared by 2 families or 3. I said, oh. I said, are you a member of the party? And she said, oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I said, well, then, how come you have to live? She said, everybody lives like that. I said, do you have a car? She said, no. I didn't say too much more. She took public transportation. That's what they all use. She told me, now she's relaxing, there are food lines every day for sugar and flour and soap and, of all things, meat. There are lines that line up. Mind you, she's a college professor, high school professor, but they don't go much to college unless they are members of the party. Anyway, she told me that she lines up for pantyhose and feminine hygiene things and shampoo. And they take what is handed to them. They never say no. But if you get the wrong size pantyhose, or if you want to exchange something, the women usually group over in here. By the way, all the women do all the standing in line. They stand over here, and then if you get the wrong size pantyhose or something, you go over to the line and you kind of exchange. But that's how it works. We are talking 1988. I am beginning to understand Helena Kovetskaya. I can see how she's terse and not very friendly and doesn't smile much. Her exposure to freedom must be for her and for the others, except I don't know what the farmers are doing. It's very, very hard. We drive to the campus again and look around. She was so happy to see that campus. It meant something to her that she had a professor contact, and it was a lovely thing that he did to assure her, this is what she said, that there were some Kareems in New York. I sort of then realized she was looking to get her daughter Catherine, who was at least 23 or 24, a marriage. And she wanted her out of the Soviet bloc countries. So she was happy when he told her it was obvious that there were some Koreans in New York. And I wonder if she ever realized that New York is so huge that Koreans would be so obscure. That's what I found out, that her daughter was marriageable age, she had no boyfriends, and that she was living at home. Living at home means on a cot. I asked her the next day, day 5, if she'd like to go to my office. I worked in parks. Parks was huge in Madison. Not only did they have to take care of ice rinks, and they had to take care of golf courses, and they had to take care of arboretums. We were a whole group of about 400 people. I was in charge of the downtown city and the Capitol building, but all the other people were scattered all over the city. And I said, would you like to come to my office with me? I didn't work for that whole week. I was taking care of Helena Kolbitskaya, but it didn't matter. She said, yes, she'd like to come to my office. And when we were there, everyone was eager to meet her. And they were wonderful. The landscape architects came, the beach coordinators came, the foresters were there, the golf course managers, the sports heads, they were all there. And it was fun. She saw my office, which is always teeming with papers. She went back and saw the landscape architects and all that they did for the beautiful city. It was just really wonderful how she liked it. And we got back in the car, and she said, pretty clothes. Pretty clothes. I said, who? She said, all the ladies in your department or in your office have pretty clothes. She said, it's a bright and pleasant place. And she said, so many happy faces. Well, of course, they're all smiling. They're meeting her. She hasn't seen the temper tantrums of the foresters. And then she said, you have quite a few ethnics. You have quite a few what? Ethnics. I realized she meant people of color. I explained to her that they're just our workforce. We don't think of them as anything different. And we don't ever take people because of that. They just get jobs. We're a big workforce. She said, I saw an ethnic in the mayor's office when we met there the first day. And I said, oh, Wanda. I said, Wanda has been there forever as a receptionist. She came as a student intern from college, and the mayors loved her so much that she's never left. She's been through about 6 mayors, and she's the receptionist because she's so adorable and so smart. She said, well, we don't have that. I said, I know. It's a whole different world that you come from. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you get to see things. Would you like to go to a grocery store? I said. Oh, she said, I've never been to a big grocery store. Now, the one I took her to is like Giant, just like Giant. I asked her what she would like to see. I drove to the grocery store, and I said, come on in, and I grabbed the cart. And off we went. The parking lot wasn't very full. And when we went in, we started just walking in, and then of course the checkout counters. And she's like dazzled, just dazzled. And I said, come on, let's go choose some fruit. What kind of fruit do you like, Helena? No answer. I moved real slowly, and she was looking around. And we went down the canned goods, all the canned goods, and she's looking. And then we went, meat departments are in the very back, always, and they're always refrigerated, and there they are. So we went along, and we have some things in the fruit and the cart from the produce, and some canned goods, and I asked her what kind of soup she liked and stuff. But she was just silent, didn't say a word. We get to the meat department, and I'm figuring out, I look at her, her face has changed completely. And all of a sudden she starts screaming. I mean, screaming and sobbing. And I'm standing there and everybody's looking, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I'm going like this to the people. My heart just sank. She told me they had meat lines. And I showed her meat in the mirror. She cried all the way home. She sobbed and sobbed and sobbed like a child. It's the first time I've seen her sensitive, overly sensitive because she's sobbing, but that's the first time I saw it. And we got in my house and I sat her down in the living room and I made some tea. She loved tea. And she tried to compose herself. Then I said, come on in the dining room. I just left the card there. I don't know what happened to that card. But anyway, we sat at the dining room table and she apologized to me for being weak. And I apologized for being inconsiderate. And we had a girl talk for the first time. Now mind you, she explained that there are such food shortages in the capital and university town of Vilnius that there are lines so long, and it's cold there. They have a climate like Madison. It's nice in the summer and sort of nice in the fall, and then winter hits. She said, there are food shortages every day. We don't get meat much. We have to take what we want, or what they give us rather, what they want. We have to look for flour and rice. Coffee is a no-no. It goes to the higher ups, not to people like her. And I thought she was a higher up. Cereal and butter and shampoo, which explains her purple hair. She got a shampoo that was purple and she used it because that's what she got. And they don't ever have feminine napkins. I don't know what you do, but they don't have them. And cigarettes, not at all. When she saw that we have everything, and she only got what was handed to her, she was sorry that she lost control. She said, it's overwhelming to me what you have, and it's not possible. There isn't shopping in Vilnius. Everyone carries a handful of aspirin to bribe or to barter to move yourself further in line. The aspirin and the sugar packets will get you maybe 2 or 3 people ahead. Mind you, this is 1988. I gave her the shampoo and the soap and told her to wash her hair really good and it will be sort of silver. She said people always carry aspirin in their pockets and people trade what they can get. And then she talked about her pantyhose. She had pantyhose with sort of a decorative theme. I don't know what they were, but she had worn them and she kept wearing them, and I thought she brought a second or third pair, but of course not. She only had that one pair. And she told me that that's a line you'll always have too long. Women want more pantyhose. And I said to her, we're going shopping and we're going to get you some pantyhose. And she said, but I can't take them back. I said, what? You can't take them back? She said, no, because they will look at my suitcase when I come in and they will see that she has pantyhose, and those are really rationed. I said, well, Helena, you're going to wear 5 pair of pantyhose on that plane, and you're going to go home, and they can't see in. She said, we can't bring anything back. We can't bring anything back. The reason we are here is because we are to observe and see how you live. which I thought was cool. But of course, I don't know how communists feel at the top. Then I said to her, why can't you take things back? She said, because they will look at everything we bring back. And did you see that tall man that came with us in the airport? And I'd only seen him once. And that was in the mayor's office. I haven't seen him since. But he's part of their delegation. He's one of the 7 men. I think he's staying with the mayor. I'm not sure. I never found out. She said, did you see that tall man? Look on your sheet of paper there. He's there. He's young. Everybody else was about 50. He's about 30, 35. See him? He's with our delegation. Excuse me, I get upset about this. He's with our delegation. He is the son of the Supreme Soviet leader in Lithuania, and he would watch everything we take back. And he reports us back. She said, everything goes back to the party. We cannot make decisions. We are here to exchange ideas as ambassadors. Then she went upstairs and I made dinner. And then I went to the store. I had to process this. This was hard on me because I'm carefree by nature and she's not. When I came back, she was reading magazines in the living room. I always have magazines. And then after dinner, we walked around this little Norwegian neighborhood. We went down to the lake. It was very peaceful, very gentle. And when we returned, we talked about her cousin's visit. Now it's dusk. It's October dusk. It's not quite dark. And she said that she was nervous to see her cousin one more time because she knew it might be the last time. And she's an American now, and she lives in Chicago. And what she said, I'm listening, her English is perfect. Her cousin was a rebel. She met an older man in Lithuania, and she ran away with him. They somehow or another, by hook, found their way to America. And they got married in Chicago, and they'd been in Chicago for 20 years. And Helena regarded this as a transgression, never to be forgiven. It was really getting late, and I said, I think we should go to bed. I'm tired, and I want to make your cousin's visit from Chicago enjoyable tomorrow. She said fine, and she was on her way up to bed, and she stopped at the foot of the stairs, and she looked at me and she said, he cannot come in your house. I said, what? She said, he cannot come in your house. I was too tired, too stunned, and I thought this is weird. So I said, I'll see you tomorrow. Her cousin arrived the next morning around 10 o'clock. Over cereal, no, it wasn't 10 o'clock. We were talking at 10 o'clock. I'm looking at my notes. Her cousin was arriving around 1 o'clock. And over cereal and tea, I said, when they come, of course he can come inside. It's October, and I'd like to show him around, and we can do something, but he can come in my house. And she said to me, as if I was not even the owner of the house, my cousin agreed he will never come in your house. And I asked why. I said, this isn't even fair, Helena. This doesn't make sense. I said, what on earth could make you so that he can't come in this house? She said he's Polish. He stole her from our family, and he harmed our family. He hurt my aunt awfully, and my mother is her sister, and he hurt my mother. I said, did you come on this trip just to see her? Helena didn't answer. It was the silence again. I told her I was going to go to the post office where I mail things to my kids. And she could come along, and she did. And we went to the drugstore, and I bought a huge bottle of aspirin. You know the aspirin that you can buy off-brand? They're not Bayer, but there's some. A bottle this big full of aspirin. I bought her bandages, an antibiotic ointment, and little sizes of those shampoos. Big bars of soap I couldn't give her, they'd be confiscated, and Vicks rub and Q-tips. She was calm, and I was telling her what I was buying her, and we went to the post office, and I said, this is where we mail packages, because she said, who inspects? Well, again, I said, Helena, this is America. We don't inspect everything somebody sends somewhere. You can look at those stamps there on the paper. Those are USSR stamps, and that means they go on after they look at what you are sending. On the way back, I thought I'd change the subject. She was wondering who inspects. Well, we don't inspect our mail from you and me. We passed a brand new treatment center that the city of Madison had built for alcoholic women and children, and also drug abuse, any kind of prevention. And I said, hey, I said, Helena, this, I can feel how I did. I said, Helena, look over there, that's our treatment center for women and children, it's brand new. And I said, we have one for men too, but these are separate. And she said, ridiculous. I said, it's not ridiculous. We try and help them so that they overcome their addiction. And it's for men and women. She said, it's just ridiculous. I said, well, why is it ridiculous? We're in the car. We're going to go meet her cousin at my house. She said, when women had children in our country and they had mental or other problems, the children go to orphanages. That's the end of it. I said, well, it's not very good for the child. It didn't matter what I said, that's what it was. The cousin arrived in front of my house in a vintage Cadillac, the kind that still had fins. The cousin came to the door, and all I could see are these two women that looked like twins, same size, everything, just hugging and crying and hugging. I said, come on in, get in here. And then I saw this figure in the car, and I went out to see him. These women were talking Lithuanian. I don't know what they were talking, but they were so happy. I went out to the car, and it was parked in front, and I opened the door and said, you can come in. And it reeked of smoke. I mean, really reeked of smoke. And he was older and tiny, a tiny man, sort of shriveled up. And he must have been about 70. And the reason I say that is if the 50s, she and her cousin are about the same age, and I'm in my 50s, and he ran off with her, I think it was probably he was 10 or 15 years older. He's around 70. I said, would you like some iced tea? No. Would you like some water? No. I think he was a timid soul. He said, they'll be catching up on a lot of news. And I said, well, that's wonderful. We're going to go for a walk. So I got him out of the car, and we walked back down to the lake, which is a block and a half. And we sat on a pier that belonged to some people that lived on the lake. there's a street that's called Lakeview, and big rich people live on that, and they look at the lake. And we were very good friends with the pastor's son, Gordon Rom, who has a big pier and a nice boat called Elvira, named after his mother. Anyway, he liked our kids, and so we let the kids go down on that pier only. They could swim off the pier, and he put a bench on it. Very nice, pastor's son, an old bachelor. Anyway, I took him down, and we sat on Brom's Pier, and we talked. And he loved watching the motorboats go around, and he also loved watching the fishermen. There were a lot of fishermen out there fishing. And he looked around, and he smiled. And he said, "This is very nice of you to have Helena's cousin come." I never learned her name, isn't that funny? I never learned her name. We talked about what it was like in Chicago, what he did. He was a factory worker. We had a nice time, except that that cigarette smell was all over him. And then we walked back, and I said, "This neighborhood's all Norwegian." I knew he was Polish. I said, "All the Norwegians that lived in this neighborhood built it, and they put in their own ideas of what they wanted from the old country." And I said, they became electricians and plasterers and carpenters around 1920. And he looked it over very approvingly. And I never asked him what grade he was in or what factory work he did. But we walked back, and he was talking, and he seemed more comfortable. And I sat with him and said, I sat in his car with him, and I said, "You can come in." And he said no, he would like to stay there in the car. And I said, "Well, can I bring you something to drink?" And he said yes, so I took him some iced tea. And tomorrow was going to be the picnic at one of the farms for all of our delegates from Lithuania. So after they left around 4 p.m., Helena seemed more content, happy, relaxed, less worried. And I said to her, "Tomorrow we're going to go to a big farm, and we're going to have all of the food that the farmer grows, and we are going to have tremendous amounts of knowledge about farming in America." And she said, "How many people live on the farm?" I said, "I don't know. I think it's the Stockstead farm. We have Norwegian farmers too." I said, "I think it's Harley Stockstead's farm." She said, "Well, how many people are on the farm?" And I said, "Well, I think Harley owns it." She said, "In our country, nobody owns a farm. They're all farm managers, and they take up different parts of the crop. You know, some are experts in corn, some are, that's how that is." So anyway, we went and we had a wonderful time at the harvest menu. And the mayor is there. The barn is spick and span. He even washed the cows. I mean, I'll tell you, I knew Harley Stockstead because of my job. We used to have a tribute to cows on the concourse, meaning the Capitol, because the cow is the mainstay of the, I guess, agriculture in Wisconsin. It's the dairy state. Anyway, before we leave the farm, and everybody's full, and they're all talking, and they've been there almost a week. The mayor announces that before you leave tomorrow, we have a gift for all of you from Madison, Wisconsin. And we are going to take you to TV Lenny's. Now, in 1988, we didn't have big box stores, but we had this one place that was specializing in televisions, in cassettes, anything electronic. TV Lenny sold, and you can imagine all those television commercials. Come to TV Lenny's, get a deal. That's what TV Lenny was, and he was a friend of the mayor's. And the mayor announces at the farm, you each have a $150 credit. Buy anything you want for $150. Of course, this is going over their head because they're not really familiar with our money in the monetary system. But he said, You have to be there at 8 o'clock because your plane is leaving at 9:30 or 10, I can't remember. So we had to be there at 8 o'clock prompt. We would have about 20 minutes to make these decisions. This is my last page, but on that evening, Helena and I packed aspirin. We put her in the morning in pantyhose at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 pair. Her suitcase didn't look very suspicious. She took the name of the Slavic professor and his Slavic studies department, and she was set to go home. And she had the shampoo bottles. I told her to put them in the pantyhose holders and things like that. Anything we could hide like that. And she thanked me for everything. She said that someday her country would be free like our country. She was excited to get a radio with a boombox. They got BBC and they got Radio Free Europe. And they had listened to that. If the reception was good, it depended on the weather. And she wanted a boombox with 2 cassettes, one she could copy and then one she could give away. She said most of the time they listened only to local news and local propaganda and music. 8 o'clock, we got the TV Lenny's. Boy, were we there. We were there. Everybody was talking about what they wanted. And they went in and TV Lenny had put boxes together, and then the display of what it would be in the box was all ready for them. And they were probably all about $100, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. They all walked around, and the 2 women that I didn't get to know because I was taking care of Helena saw a pink radio. Oh, they loved that pink radio. And it was with an adapter for Europe, and it was adorable. And they were giggling about it. And Lithuanians don't giggle much, but they were thinking that was so cute. Helena wanted a boombox with 1 cassette. She had decided maybe she wasn't going to get one with 2 cassettes, so she'd want one with 1. And they all were ready to go in 20 minutes, and they all were excited. And we didn't help them choose. We stood back. All of us stood back at the doorway. We were not going to influence them. And we noticed afterwards that unbeknownst to us, everyone bought the exact same cassette. Or not cassette, boombox. Everyone bought the exact one, all 10 of them. And I said to Helena, did you get what you wanted? And she said, no, I got what he got. I said, what who got? She said, that Paul. I said, well, why'd you do that? She said, because I didn't want to be reported. Our 10 house guests were watching him and what he chose, and what he chose, they chose also. We went to the airport, all traveling separately in very heavy hearts. We bid them goodbye. We bid them to keep in touch. Helena had my address. And I got 2 letters from her, both, look at the list there on that paper. It wasn't, I had a wonderful time, you are a nice person, it wasn't anything. Please send me these things. On the right-hand side of the list, half in Russian and half in English. They lived like that for 73 years, and in 1991, all of the Soviet bloc countries were dispersed. They were no longer part of the Union of Soviet Russia. I have not heard from her since, but I'm in my 80s, so I assume that she's in her 80s and maybe was not well enough to write again, and I have moved. But I have to say one thing. I've never had a house guest that I learned so much from. Thank you.